One day, or tonight.
So what's up and welcome back, y'all. So this video is actually gonna be a short one. I know I said that the last one when I was putting the transmission together was gonna be a short one, and it really kind of wasn't. It was more like regular length. But this one really is gonna be kind of on the short side, because a lot of the stuff that I gotta do, I'm not gonna record too much. But basically today, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see me and Shane, Toe Strap Garage on YouTube, kind of did a little like photo shoot at work, right next to the building. And the whole time when we was doing the photo shoot, my car was idling, and I've noticed over the past like week or so that my car at idle has been kind of blowing a little bit of white smoke out the exhaust. But I just kind of chalked it up to the fact that the weather's a little different and it's been kind of cool lately. There's a lot of moisture in the air and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, it's just moisture in the exhaust or whatever, like not a big deal. But today it was hot. It was like 80 degrees. You know, it wasn't that humid. I think humidity was like 55%. And so there was no reason for my exhaust to be smoking. But nevertheless, it was. We gave it a few revs. It revved out a little worse. And on the drive home, it kind of started smoking a little bit at first, but like the longer I drove it, it just kind of cleared up. When I got home, it wasn't really smoking. So pulled out the spark plugs. As you can see, the wires and stuff are all taken out. I got this towel over here, so that way when I crank the engine, I was doing a compression test, that way when you crank the engine, the towel catches all the crap. I don't end up with a bunch of oil residue or whatever else might come out of the cylinders all over the engine bay. Because we worked really hard to get this engine bay like the way that it is, and it's easier to maintain it than to do all this crap again. So this towel is just kind of blocking all the stuff that might come out of the cylinders. But as you can see here, I just did the last one in cylinder 4. It's right at about like 208, 209, something like that, maybe 207. Let me see. 190, 200, so it's like right at 200 basically. And that's how it was for all the cylinders, like all the way across. So piston rings are good. If anything, they're a little worn. If you don't know anything about the history of this motor, so basically this motor, I came across it when I went to the junkyard because I was trying to fix an issue that happened under my dash. My wiring under my dash actually caught fire because the guy that owned the car before me left an O2 sensor hanging out the bottom of the car, the one that goes behind the catalytic, and that ended up arcing on the exhaust, and it created a whole bunch of heat in here, and it caught my fuse box on fire. So I basically had to like rewire, like I had to pull the dash out and rewire a bunch of stuff under there, swap out the fuse box and all that jazz. So me and Shane went out to the junkyard, and when we was out at the junkyard, we came across a red Integra. It was like a 94, 95 or whatever, but the fuse box and everything is the same, even though it's OBD1 and this one's OBD2A. They share the same fuse boxes and stuff, and the plugs and everything under the dash are the same. The majority of the components that change is just like under hood stuff. But so yeah, so I got everything that I needed from that car. And then what ended up happening was, after I got everything that I needed from that car, Shane was like, oh damn, they dropped the motor. The car used to be an automatic, and this B20, obviously not with the VTEC head and stuff, but this B20 was sitting on the ground. And when we looked at it, it was like super clean. Like clean to the point where Shane was like, yo, you got to take this home motor. I'm gonna see if I find a picture of it. I think I have a picture of it on my Google Drive. I'll go ahead and insert that right here just so you can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I ended up spinning the motor spun real clean. I ended up taking the head off because I wasn't trying to pay for a full motor. I think at the time it was like $150 for a short block at OKQ, so just the block fully assembled. So I ended up taking it without the head or anything, and then eventually my motor in here got messed up because I didn't torque the bearings right. I ended up doing the GSR girdle, and the 3 center bearings have different torque. I didn't know that at the time, so I torqued them all to the same torque specs, and my 3 middle main bearings basically took a crap. The motor was still running and stuff, but it was running real sluggish. I was getting a bunch of smoke, and I guess because of all the restriction and stuff like that, it ate my piston rings. So luckily I had this thing sitting in the storage, went and picked it up, propped it up on the stand, opened it up, looked at the bearings and stuff like that. Bearings and everything were good. This motor had like maybe 70,000 miles when I picked it up at the junkyard. It's a B20B, so it was a J-spec, and it was put into the car. And then my guess is that right after that motor was put in the car, the transmission took a crap, as most automatic Integra transmissions do. So because I was already in there, I said screw it. I had some bearings here from a K20. Actually it was a K24 that I was going to rebuild. So I was like, well, I'll just go ahead and use these bearings, and I'll go ahead and order a new set of bearings for the K24. If you didn't know, all the main bearings and stuff like that for like the K series are the same. The only ones that are different are like the rod bearings. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the thrust washers might be the same also. But so yeah, so I basically assembled the motor with those bearings, got new rod bearings. Actually, the rod bearings, I remember I went and bought them at AutoZone, the local AutoZone. And yeah, and I assembled the motor. It's got a GSR head because I do have a full complete GSR in storage. So GSR head. I ported the intake and exhaust ports myself. Not the best port. Now that I know how to actually port, the port that I did back then wasn't really a port. The only thing that I opened, or that I did, was I kind of port matched to the gaskets, the openings, but I didn't actually port the actual like the runners that go into the valves and stuff like that. So it's technically not really ported. Kind of is, not really, call it whatever you want. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. And then the 525cc injectors and stuff like that were already on here. The Blox intake manifold was on the GSR head when I bought it, and then this car when I bought it was already boosted, so I literally just kind of used everything again. And obviously I cleaned a bunch of stuff up, did the breather setup and all that other stuff, and all this piping and everything is all brand new also. But yeah, so long story short, compression is good. I may need to do valve seals. I've never done valve seals on this head, or I might need to swap the turbo again, because when I first got this car, the turbo didn't have a restrictor on it, because journal bearing turbos aren't supposed to have restrictors on them. Mine didn't have a restrictor on it, but it blew out the seal. So I ended up getting another exact replacement of the turbo. The turbo is a 4248 T3. Really small. As soon as you hit the throttle, thing's spooling. And so I ended up putting a restrictor on it, and it's been years now, and I've been running it like that. And people tell me, oh, well, you're gonna starve it of oil because you have that restrictor in. Here we are like 3 years later, turbo's still chilling, unless it finally just decided to blow out a seal. I'm not sure. So we'll see what happens here. I think I'm gonna go ahead and swap this head out. I have a CTR head in storage that I've been wanting to use. I was gonna build a Poor Man's FR with it, but if I have it, might as well use it. I think I'm gonna send that to the machine shop, have them do the valve seals and all that stuff. This car's still drivable, so I'm gonna still put it around for now. We'll see where we end up. All right, so it's been a minute. I forgot to record when I put the plugs back in. I went to O'Reilly's and picked up the spark plugs. I got them to about like 0.030. Usually you're supposed to gap them down to like 0.028, but that's usually only if you're like running like higher boost so that it doesn't blow out the spark. But this car is tuned, well, by me, not like professionally tuned. and when I tuned it, the gap was set to about like 0.30 basically. So I just went ahead and set the gap to the plugs to 0.30 again, and put them in. And I gotta say, before the car used to take a bit to start. As soon as I finished putting the new plugs in, it just like cranked. It started right up first try. And I went to the gym. When I got to the gym, I looked at the exhaust. I didn't see any smoke. I left the gym, looked at the exhaust, didn't see any smoke. So we're gonna check it right now and see if it's smoking. Alright, yo, so it's like 2 days after I filmed that last clip where I was at the gas station checking to see if the car was smoking or not. And I mean, lately it hasn't been smoking, at least not that much, or at least not to where I could see it. I'm pretty sure it's still burning a little bit of oil, because I can smell it. Once my wastegate like opens up, I can smell it come into the cabin, and it smells like burning oil. The one thing that I did change was my return setup on the car. A good friend of mine who works with a lot of like turbo diesel trucks and stuff like that, he was telling me that depending on how I set up my return line, I could be getting a little back pressure to the turbo now, which I think could actually be the case, because I did make it a lot longer. He said if you make it too long, it'll kind of build up inside the line and it'll build some back pressure. Plus I have a 90 at the end with a slight kink that I'm pretty sure is I'm pretty sure is building some back pressure. So I mean, I'm gonna close out this video here. It's already been kind of long enough. It's just been kind of long enough. It's just been a lot of me like rambling and kind of talking about some stuff that's going on. And so I think the next thing that I'm gonna do is with my car is I went ahead and ordered new lines and AN fittings. Plus Shane gave me a whole another set of 10 AN line -10 line with fittings and stuff like that. So when I get a chance, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just go ahead and make a new line, and with fittings and everything, and I'm gonna make it a lot shorter. So it's gonna be a 45 coming from the return of the turbo straight down, and then another 45 going right to the pan. I made it a little longer to try to avoid the wastegate dump tube, because it spits like straight down towards the end of my radiator support, and I didn't want the line to be directly in the way in case it pops off in flames and shit over time. Like, I don't want it melting the line and then creating an issue, because obviously oil could become flammable. Well, it is flammable. You get it hot enough, it'll flash, and it could be a big problem. So yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a new line. That's gonna be for a completely separate video. As far as this video goes, we're done. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The thing that I'm gonna work on next, like I showed you guys, I got Gabriel's car here at the house. There's gonna be a few things that I have to finish up on this car again before we get to the EF. The original plan was to leave it on the chip DCU that came with the swap from Shane. Went a completely different route. So now we're gonna keep the Honda in Gabriel's car, which is right here in front of me right now. And I need to wire VTEC. I need to install a few other electrical components in here, and I need to do a valve seal, because he's been driving the car around and the car has been smoking, and we narrowed it down to the fact that the valve seals need to get done. We didn't think that they needed to get done at the time that I put the motor together, but now we learn from now on, as a rule of thumb, before any kind of head goes on any kind of motor that we're building, we're just gonna go ahead and knock the valve seals out of the way. I actually have the spring compressor tool to do them out of the car. Never done them in the car. So I'm gonna give them a shot. I'm gonna give it a shot and see what happens. Worst case scenario, I gotta take the head off and send it to a machine shop and have them deal with it. Or I can actually do it here with the spring compressor that I have, which is when the head is off the car. So, but yeah, so catch you guys next time. Take it easy.